Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. This time, we're going exploring something I know a lot of you are really interested in: deep learning. You've sent in some fascinating sources to guide us. One, a general overview, and the other, well, let's just say, I'm really glad we've got an expert on hand today.
Yeah, you could say that deep learning has its roots all over the world. But before we lose ourselves in translation, maybe we should start with, well, the basics.
You're right, grounding ourselves first is probably a good idea. I have to admit, though, all this talk of AI beating humans at Go, creating art, it's mind-blowing, but I'm still a bit fuzzy on what deep learning actually is. Kind of feels like one of those buzzwords everyone's using these days.
Yeah, I get it. It's easy to get caught up in all the hype. Think of it this way. Deep learning is like the engine driving so much of the AI we see today. That engine is built on these things called artificial neural networks. They're kind of like simplified versions of the networks of neurons in our brains.
Okay, so inspired by the brain, but how does that actually turn into something that can, say, recognize an image or write a poem?
It's all about the layers. That's where the deep in deep learning comes in. Imagine a network with a whole bunch of layers, and each one processes information, passing it on to the next. So the first layer might just pick up on simple stuff like edges or colors in an image. And then the next layer, it combines those basic features into something more complex, like shapes and so on, layer after layer, until you get to the final one that can actually recognize an object or generate text.
So the more layers, the deeper the network, the more it can learn.
Exactly. It's like, building with Legos, the more blocks you have, the more intricate your creation can be, right? But these networks, they don't just magically know what to do with all that information, and that's where the learning comes in.
Right, that's what I was wondering about. How do you teach a network of artificial neurons to actually do anything useful?
Well, it's not so much teaching as it is training. It's like training a dog, right? You give it a command, it does something kind of close, and you reward it when it gets closer to what you want. With deep learning, you feed the network tons and tons of labeled data, like images of cats and dogs, and it tries to predict what it's seeing. At first, obviously, it's going to get a lot wrong, but through this process called backpropagation, it adjusts the connections between the neurons based on the errors.
So backpropagation is like the network kind of figuring out what it did wrong and trying to correct itself.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, tweaking the knobs on a sound mixer, just trying to find that perfect balance. The network is constantly fine-tuning its parameters to minimize those errors and get more accurate. The really amazing thing about deep learning is that it can handle these really messy, unstructured types of data that traditional machine learning algorithms struggle with. Things like images, audio, text. It's like it can learn its own language for understanding the world.
That's pretty incredible. It sounds like it's especially good at things that we humans are good at, like recognizing patterns and making sense of complex information. But I'm guessing there isn't just one type of deep neural network, is there? Just like there are different parts of our brain specialized for different tasks.
You're absolutely right. Depending on the data, and the task at hand, there are different network architectures that are better suited. Think of it like a toolbox. You wouldn't use a hammer to screw in a light bulb, would you?
Okay, I'm intrigued. What are some of the most common types of networks and what are they good at?
Well, for image recognition, convolutional neural networks, or CNNs, are the big players. They're especially good at identifying these spatial patterns in images. So think about like facial recognition on your phone that's likely powered by a CNN, or self-driving cars that can see pedestrians and stop signs. CNNs are a huge part of that too.
So CNNs are like the visual experts of the deep learning world.
You got it. And then you've got recurrent neural networks, RNNs, which are masters of sequences. They're designed to handle data that comes in a particular order, like words in a sentence or notes in a melody.
I was reading about how RNNs are used for things like speech recognition and language translation, which seems, pretty crucial in our increasingly interconnected world.
Absolutely crucial. And then there's a special kind of RNN called an LSTM, which stands for long short-term memory. Think of it like an RNN with a built-in memory bank. It can remember information from earlier on, earlier in the sequence, which is key for understanding things like context in language or predicting the next word in a sentence.
Look, LSTMs are like the deep thinkers of the RNN world, able to hold on to those important details.
Exactly. They're a big deal for things like, chatbots that can hold a conversation and those AI assistants that can understand your commands.
Wow, these networks are getting more and more sophisticated. It's like we're giving machines the ability to think, to learn, even to be creative in a way. Are there any other types we should know about?
Oh, there are a couple more worth mentioning. Autoencoders, for example, they're like the data compression experts. They learn to represent data in a smaller, more efficient way, and then they can reconstruct it back to its original form. It's really useful for things like reducing noise in images or spotting anomalies in data, like a fraudulent transaction that doesn't fit the usual pattern.
That's fascinating. So they're like the detectives of the deep learning world, always on the lookout for anything out of place.
That's a great way to put it. And then, well, you've got the rock stars of the AI art scene generative adversarial networks, or GANs. These are the networks that can create new data from scratch, things like generating realistic images of people who don't actually exist or composing brand new pieces of music.
I've seen some of those AI-generated images, and they're incredibly realistic. It's almost eerie how good they're getting.
It is pretty mind-bending to think about what they're capable of. And just like any powerful tool, it's important to consider the potential implications, the positive ones, and maybe the not so positive ones.
That's a good point. We've talked about all these amazing applications, but I'm sure there are challenges and even potential risks with this technology.
You're right. We've only just begun to explore the potential of deep learning. And with anything this powerful, well, it's important to use it responsibly.
Well, this is definitely a lot to process, but I'm hooked. I'm really excited to get into some specific examples of how this technology is, well, how it's changing the world.
Yeah, I'm happy to walk you through some real-world applications. I think, especially given your interest in mention a specific interest of the listener based on the sources they provided, there are some you'll find especially fascinating.
Perfect. Let's see how this deep learning revolution is actually playing out in the real world. So we've got a handle on all these different kinds of networks out there. The specialists, the visual experts, the deep thinkers. But where are we seeing them actually making a real difference?
Well, one area that's really exciting, and that I know you're interested in based on those articles you sent, is the world of medicine. Imagine a world where AI can actually help doctors diagnose diseases, earlier and more accurately than ever before.
That sounds like something straight out of science fiction.
Well, it's closer to reality than you might think. One of the sources you sent talks about how convolutional neural networks, those image recognition champs, are being used to actually analyze medical scans.
Yeah.
They can pick up on these tiny details, these subtle patterns that even the most experienced human eye might miss.
So it's like having, like an extra set of superpowered eyes helping doctors make those critical decisions.
Exactly. Think about cancer detection, for example. Early diagnosis is crucial for successful treatment, and deep learning algorithms are being trained to spot those telltale signs of cancer in scans, even in those very early stages.
That could be a game changer for so many people.
It really could.
Yeah.
And it's not just about detection. Deep learning is also being used to personalize treatment plans. Imagine an AI that can actually analyze a patient's entire medical history, genetic information, even lifestyle factors to recommend the most effective treatment options.
So it's like having a personalized health advisor that knows you better than you know yourself.
In a way, yes, but it's important to remember that these are tools to empower doctors, not to replace them. Human expertise and empathy, that's still absolutely essential in healthcare.
Of course, AI shouldn't be making those life or death decisions on its own, but it's pretty amazing to think about how it can augment human capabilities and improve healthcare outcomes.
Absolutely. And speaking of analyzing vast amounts of data to make informed decisions, another field where deep learning is making a real impact is finance. I bet you've even experienced this yourself without realizing it.
Oh, you mean like those targeted ads that seem to know exactly what I'm thinking about buying?
Well, yeah, that's one example. But on a more serious note, deep learning is actually being used to combat fraud, assess risk, and even to make investment decisions.
That makes it, I mean, finance is all about patterns and predictions, right?
Exactly. Deep learning algorithms can analyze, millions of transactions in real time. They're looking for those subtle anomalies that might indicate fraudulent activity, which helps protect businesses and consumers alike. And on the investment side, these algorithms can analyze market trends, evaluate different assets, and try to predict future market movements.
So it's like having a financial crystal ball, but one that's powered by data and algorithms, instead of magic.
That's a fun way to put it. Of course, no predictive model is perfect, and there are always risks involved in investing. But deep learning is definitely adding a whole new layer of sophistication to the financial world.
I'm starting to see how deep learning is touching, so many aspects of our lives, even if we don't always realize it.
It's true, and it's not just about those high stakes fields like medicine and finance. Think about how we communicate and interact with information. Deep learning is revolutionizing that too.
Oh, yeah. I use those real-time translation tools all the time when I'm traveling, and I've definitely noticed those chatbots popping up everywhere online.
That's deep learning in action. Those translation tools, they rely on neural networks to actually understand and generate natural language. They're breaking down language barriers and connecting people across cultures. And those chatbots that you're encountering, they're often powered by deep learning models that can understand your questions and provide helpful answers, even if there's no human on the other end.
Some of those chatbots are so good. I can't even tell if I'm talking to a real person or not.
It's getting harder and harder to tell the difference, isn't it? As these models are trained on more and more data, they're becoming incredibly good at mimicking human conversation.
It makes you wonder where it all stops. What are the limits of what deep learning can actually do? Is there anything it can't learn?
That's a fascinating question, and one that researchers are constantly pushing the boundaries on. One of the most one of the most ambitious goals in the field of AI is the development of artificial general intelligence, or AGI.
I've heard that term, but I'm not sure I fully understand what it means.
So AGI, it refers to the idea of creating AI that has the same general cognitive abilities as, well, as a human being. The ability to learn, to solve problems, and to adapt to new situations, across a wide range of domains, not just specialized tasks.
So it's like creating a truly intelligent machine, one that can think for itself.
That's the dream. Although, we're still a long way from achieving true AGI. It's one of the biggest challenges and most debated topics in the field of AI.
I can imagine. It raises so many, philosophical questions
Hmm.
about consciousness, creativity, what it means to be human. But even if we don't achieve true AGI anytime soon, it's clear that deep learning is already having a profound impact on society.
Absolutely. It's changing the way we work, the way we learn, the way we interact with each other, and even the way we think about our place in the world.
And as with any powerful technology, it's important to be aware of both the incredible opportunities and the potential challenges.
I couldn't agree more. We're at a pivotal moment with this technology. It's up to us to shape its future responsibly.
We've talked about all the amazing things deep learning can do, from diagnosing diseases to composing music, but I think it's time to address the elephant in the room, the potential downsides.
It's true that with any powerful technology, there are always potential risks and unintended consequences. It's important to be aware of those and to think critically about, how we can mitigate them.
One of the things I've been reading about is the concern about job displacement. If AI can do more and more of the tasks that humans currently do, what happens to those jobs?
It's a valid concern. As deep learning becomes more sophisticated, it's capable of automating tasks that were previously done by humans. And this could potentially lead to job losses in certain industries, which could have a ripple effect throughout the economy.
It's almost like we're in a race with machines, and I'm not sure if we're winning.
It's not necessarily about winning or losing. It's about adaptation and evolution. Just as technology has always disrupted the job market, creating new jobs while rendering others obsolete, deep learning is likely to reshape the landscape of work in ways we can't fully predict.
So what can we do to prepare for this shift?
Well, one key is to focus on education and retraining programs, that equip people with the skills they need to thrive in a future where AI plays a larger role. We need to think about what uniquely human skills will be most valuable in the future, and make sure people have access to the education and training they need to develop those skills.
That makes sense. It's not about trying to compete with machines, but about finding ways to work alongside them and leverage their strengths.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual workers. Policymakers and businesses, they also have a role to play in ensuring a smooth transition to a future where AI is more integrated into the workforce.
It sounds like this is going to require a lot of, collaboration and forward thinking.
It will, and it's not just about the economic implications. There are also important social and ethical considerations to keep in mind as deep learning becomes more pervasive in our lives.
One of the things that worries me is the potential for deep learning to be used for surveillance and social control.
It's a valid concern. Deep learning is already being used in surveillance systems around the world, from facial recognition cameras to algorithms that track our online activity.
Hmm.
While these technologies can be used for legitimate purposes like security and crime prevention, they also have the potential to be misused in ways that infringe on our privacy and civil liberties.
It's like something out of, like a dystopian novel where Big Brother's always watching.
It's important to be aware of those risks and to advocate for policies and safeguards that protect our privacy and autonomy in a world where AI is becoming increasingly powerful. We need to make sure that these technologies are used responsibly and ethically.
So it's about finding that balance between innovation and protection, between the potential benefits of deep learning and the potential risks.
Exactly. It's not about rejecting technology altogether, but about shaping its development and deployment in ways that align with our values and serve humanity as a whole.
That's a powerful message. It
Yeah.
seems like we're at a crossroads with AI, and the decisions we made today will have a profound impact on the future.
We are, and that's why it's so important to have these conversations, to think critically about the implications of this technology and to work together to create a future where deep learning is used for good.
Well, I think this deep dive has given our listener a lot to think about. It's clear that deep learning it's a powerful tool with the potential to revolutionize countless aspects of our lives.
It has been a fascinating exploration, and I hope our listener feels empowered to learn more and engage in these important conversations. The future of deep learning is in many ways still being written, and it's up to all of us to shape it responsibly.
That's it for our deep dive into deep learning. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the world of knowledge and ideas.